Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Welcome back to another edition here on the channel following that 9-1 loss to the Colorado Avalanche last night. Potentially, well, hopefully, and it should be, the worst loss of the season for the Edmonton Oilers, and especially on home ice. A game in which many, I think if you read the lead up to the game, broadcasters, anybody was like, this could go one of two ways. Either the Oilers play up to the Avalanche and really get out there and fly, and it's a classic game, or the Oilers are bound to get embarrassed. And well, last night the Oilers more than got embarrassed out there on home ice against the Colorado Avalanche. A good night for my buddy Tron, who was at the game watching, cheering on the Colorado Avalanche. So I mean, maybe for me not to complain too much for a buddy, but yeah, no, just there are no words, but we'll dive into it a little bit because there are plenty of fallout coming out of this game. Again, if you haven't had a chance, go read Mark Spector's article over on sportsnet.ca. A lot to be done about the Oilers here, and a lot to be done about the mentality this team has around fixing what is wrong with said teams. So that's where we begin today, friends. If you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. Love to have you aboard. I know the videos have been very inconsistent this month. Trust me, the Oilers trying to figure out their stuff up here, myself as well, because it's just the start of winter here, and I hopefully cracked the case last night and figured out kind of what's going wrong with me the last few winters down here, or lack thereof winters down here. So we'll discuss more of that some other day. But for the Oilers, a 9-1 loss, as I said, against the Colorado Avalanche last night. Just, I mean, you can make every excuse, and the Oilers are willing to make every excuse to cover it up. It is just simply the Oilers are not the team that they need to be. That's the only really way to put it. And yes, I know, okay, they'll pick it up and they'll go and they'll be better in the playoffs, and I understand how the formula works here in Edmonton. It's not an excuse for how frustrating it is as a fan to watch this team not give a single, out there trying to win a hockey game in October, November. Secondary, it's not an excuse for, losing points that you really should have. I'm not saying that the Oilers at all stood a chance against Colorado last night. It's just, you hope that something like this is rock bottom. You hope something like this is the end of the excuses. You hope something like this is the start of the Oilers playing better, because, the coaching staff, while they still make excuses, had no reason really, other than, oh my God, we have to match the speed of the Avalanche, to throw McDavid and Draisaitl back together last night to start the game. That was the big matchup line there, Roslovic, Draisaitl, and McDavid. That's a joke. That's a joke. Podkolzin, Roslovic, and Draisaitl have been absolutely dominating out there the last few games, and that's what you go and do in response to the Colorado Avalanche coming in. There's a complete, from a coaching staff standpoint, they've got to own this. They've got a complete lack of faith in almost everybody on the roster, and just by default, because McDavid and Draisaitl are who they are, even if they don't have faith in those two guys, they get the opportunity to lead the way. Instead of, in a game where, the Colorado Avalanche aren't a one-line team, so why do you need one line to combat them? No, you need everybody going. And the Oilers coaching staff all season long has somehow refused to go out there and, give the roles to guys that need them to contribute in a regular lineup spot. McDavid and Draisaitl killing penalties. I know we understood the theory behind that. It is goofy. It is not working. It is probably the dumbest change we've made this offseason. And we're now 16 games into the season, and we still think it's the solution. So I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot from the coaching staff standpoint. And again, we're we're what, eight? I don't know what the record is here. It's kind of all muddled up here. The Oilers are 6-4. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. So, you've got 10 losses on the season and you've got 6 wins. I know, okay, you got 4 overtime points. I get it. But, still not good at all. And the Oilers are just kind of treading water here in the bottom 10 spots in the NHL standings. And, the guys like Trent Frederick, the guys like, Darnell Nurse, the guys like, anyone on this roster, Andrew Mangiapane, like those guys are under the microscope, especially in Mark Spector's article, not necessarily Darnell Nurse to the shock of everyone, but those are guys that you should look at for guys coming after him, wanting to, drop the gloves with him, all that. And the excuses that were given in the interviews last night are absolutely wild. But, it's kind of one of those things is I don't care if somebody wants to fight you. I don't care if you feel like you can impact the game physically because you're not, speeding around enough, or I don't feel, or, you're a top four defenseman, so you don't feel like you can punch somebody's lights out to spark the team because the team needs you to defend for that 5 minutes after the fact. No, it's like at some point somebody's just got to do something here. And, everybody's probably going over, well, we're missing Kane, we're missing Perry. Those guys would make a big difference. They didn't until they did. And that's kind of my argument here is the Oilers were getting walked all over at the start of last year as well. And, at some point, I think it was the 9-10 game mark, Corey Perry just decided enough's enough and started beating somebody up on the ice just for the heck of it. And, for the next 15 games, the Oilers were like 8-0-0 in games out of those 15 with a fight. I know that my numbers aren't perfect. You can go back, check the stats for yourself. But the Oilers are just, doing nothing. Nothing. And there are guys on this team capable of doing that. Again, that's why we signed Trent Frederick to 3-point whatever the heck. We've had Darnell Nurse fill in that role for years. Andrew Mangiapane's a guy who just needs to get in there, greasy, jab the goalie in the midsection, trying to free up a loose puck and cause a melee. But the Oilers just don't. They just don't do anything of substance in regards to that. I mean, I think the shocking part is here. I'll read the penalties for you for the Oilers last night. The penalties, yeah, they were heavy in the first period, but outside of that, it was kind of, whatever. You got Darnell Nurse taking a tripping call, Jack Roslovic taking interference in the first period, high sticking to Connor McDavid, Jake Wallman cross-checking in the first period. That's the first period. And then Vasily Podkolzin high sticking. So you're doing all this stick work, which is indicative of being behind the play against the Avalanche, who were just piling goals up against you. And then Jake Wallman takes a hooking call in an unsportsmanlike conduct. Where in that? Where in anything you saw last night, other than the Oilers rolling over and dying, did you see the Oilers really give a damn about that game? Right? They let in 2 goals, and I mean Stuart Skinner has gone blameless in this video, and I don't really care because you give in 2 goals against Cale Makar to start the game, and it just folds. All 20 skaters, even Calvin Pickard sees time in this game and folded before he got in there. So, all 20 players for the Oilers that suited up last night folded as soon as Cale Makar scored 2 goals, and it was truly embarrassing to sit there and watch on the couch, especially with a buddy last night, and sit there and just like, what are we watching here? What, like, this team's gone to back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. We didn't lose McDavid to a trade. We signed Draisaitl and McDavid long-term. Jake Wallman's here. You got Trent Frederick. We locked up some pieces. We got some youth like the whole plan was, and just nobody cares to at all, try. So it's frustrating as it can be, and hopefully, friends, this truly is rock bottom for the Edmonton Oilers, because there is not much lower you can go after what happened last night. And if there is, that's where, we're a little too late into the season to, fire a head coach and go on a miraculous run, win 16 games in a row, and go to the Stanley Cup final. I know that seems crazy because we did it later in the season 2 years ago, but the juice ain't there 3 years in a row to do it. And that is clear as of last night. Friends, thank you so much for being aboard. For right now, though, I'm up on out of here.